These are some athletic freaks who failed, and we gotta start with McClung. Back when he was in high school, this 6'2" little white boy from Virginia wasn't just filling up the stat sheet, he was absolutely lighting up Instagram and YouTube with jaw-dropping dunks that didn't even seem physically possible. Every game felt like a trailer for a new white man can't jump. It'd be way better than that one a couple of years ago with Jack Harlow, for fuck's sake. He continuously packed gyms, everyone's phones in the air, and a white kid with insane bounce doing windmills, East Bays, and handing out posters like he was in the NBA at the age of 16. Even people who didn't care about basketball knew about that one white dude who dunks like crazy. McClung didn't just play basketball. He put on a show every single night. He broke Allen Iverson's Virginia State high school scoring record and became a certified Ball is Life mixtape legend. And in today's world where social media is nearly as important as actual scouting, that kind of buzz can change your entire career path. Overnight, Mac wasn't just a player, he was becoming a brand. He had millions of views, reposts from NBA players, and legit hype from fans who had never seen anything like him. A 6'2" high school kid casually doing 360 windmill East Bays and cockback posters on taller defenders. That wasn't shit you see every day, and people couldn't get enough of it. Colleges were noticing too. He originally committed to Rutgers, but eventually flipped to Georgetown, hoping to play under the spotlights of a program once led by NBA legends like Patrick Ewing and Allen Iverson. His time at Georgetown showed flashes of a superstar in the making, but it was also clear that his game still needed refinement. He could score and bring energy, but questions about his size, defense, playmaking, and decision-making kept popping up. After 2 seasons, he transferred to Texas Tech, where he had a solid junior year, but didn't explode in the way some fans had expected and hoped. Despite all of the highlight plays he generated, Mac went undrafted in the 2021 NBA draft. It was boggling for fans who followed his journey from viral sensation to college star, but it also wasn't entirely surprising, I suppose. NBA teams weren't sure how his flashy, athletic playstyle would translate into the pro game. Was he too small? Was he actually a point guard? Or was he an undersized 2 guard with undeveloped scoring instincts? Could he defend elite level talent or consistently make the right reads on a nightly basis? All those question marks hung over him like a fucking storm cloud. Still, Mac didn't let that get to his head. If anything, it added fuel to the fire. He signed with the Los Angeles Lakers for the Summer League and preseason, but ended up spending most of his time in the G League, where he quickly showed he had the talent to play. His time with teams like the South Bay Lakers and Delaware Blue Coats gave him the chance to work on his all-around game, running the offense, and getting others involved and in rhythm, playing tougher defense, improving his jumper, and learning how to be a true professional on and off the floor. And of course, the hops didn't disappear. In fact, they got even crazier. He was still that same high-flying athlete, but now he was learning to channel it in a more controlled and less chaotic way. But then came a moment that put his name back on everyone's radar, the 2023 Slam Dunk Contest. McClung, despite being on a 2-way contract and technically not even an active player in the NBA at that time, was invited to participate. A lot of fans were confused by this, but also pumped to see what he can do on the big stage. When the lights came on, the crowds watched in awe, and Mac delivered one of the greatest dunk performances we've seen in recent history. He nailed every dunk on the first try, he brought out insane creativity, which has gotten to be nearly impossible nowadays, ridiculous bounce, good execution. Whether it was the 2-handed 540, the double pump reverse off the glass, or jumping over 2 people with ease, each dunk was met with shocked faces, standing ovations, and 10s from the judges. Anyone giving 9s was just hating. He didn't just win the contest, he low-key saved it this year. Many fans have been calling for the dunk contest to be changed in recent years, saying it had lost its magic that it once had, and none of them were worth watching since 2016. But Mac brought the magic back. The next year, he did it again. In 2024, he returned and defended his title with even more creativity and polish. At that point, it didn't matter that he wasn't a regular rotation player in the NBA, he was already a dunk contest legend. McClung had become the first G League player to win the dunk contest, and then the first back-to-back winner in over a decade. Even NBA stars who had never heard of him were now paying attention and praising him. His performance reminded everyone just how rare his athleticism really is. He's not just a good jumper, he's a freak of nature. He gets off the ground like he's made of air, dunks with power, style, and control, and brings a level of confidence and swagger that's honestly hard to teach. I wouldn't be able to dunk like he does on an 8-foot rim, but despite the hype and despite the highlight reels, McClung faces the same challenge that's followed him since high school. Can he do more than just dunk? The NBA is full of elite athletes, but only the most well-rounded ones get consistent minutes on a roster. Mac has the tools to be more than just a dunker. He has quickness, handles, toughness, and that fearless energy that coaches love. But the real question is whether he can become a consistent shooter, a capable passer, and a trustworthy defender. So far, his time in the G League has shown improvement. He's averaged strong scoring numbers, shown leadership on the court, and earned multiple call-ups to NBA rosters, including the Lakers, the Bulls, and 76ers. But every time he gets a short opportunity, he's still stuck fighting for a more permanent role. It's the same story many fringe NBA players face. You're good enough to get in the door, but staying there takes something extra. It takes adapting your game, understanding team systems, and being able to shine even in small roles. And while dunking might get you noticed, it's your overall impact on winning that keeps you around. That's where Mac is right now. He's at the crossroads of becoming more than just a highlight machine. He's shown he can handle the ball, run an offense, and even hit clutch shots in the G League. He's proven he's not afraid of pressure, and more importantly, he's proven that no matter how many people doubt him, he keeps showing up, keeps working hard, and puts on a show. His work ethic has never been in question. In fact, one of the reasons coaches and teammates root for him is because they know how badly he wants it. Not just the fame, but the game itself. He's constantly in the gym, constantly working, and constantly looking to get better. That's the kind of mindset that turns a fringe player into a reliable one. And when you combine that kind of focus with elite level athleticism, that's when something special can happen. McClung may not have a guaranteed NBA spot yet, but he has something you can't teach: star power. Whether it's a dunk contest, a viral video, or a clutch performance in the G League, he shows up when the lights are at their brightest. And at just 25 years old, he still has time to develop the rest of his game. If he can add a more reliable three-point shot, tighten up his decision-making, and become even a slightly above-average defender, there's no reason why he can't carve out some sort of role in the NBA. There are plenty of NBA players who started out as question marks and eventually became key contributors. Alex Caruso, Patrick Beverley, even Fred VanVleet. McClung could easily be one of these stories as long as he keeps evolving. Because while 360 East Bays and between the legs windmills might break the internet, it's the basics: defense, smart passes, hustle plays, rolls that break into NBA rotations. And if Mac can master those, he can stick around. In the end, Mac McClung is a rare kind of athlete, someone whose physical gifts alone could have made him a legend in street ball or the And One tour, but he's aiming higher. He wants to prove he's not just a dunk contest king or a social media icon. He wants to be the real deal, every night against the best in the world. And honestly, he might still have a chance. If you're watching this right now, there's an 85% chance that you're not subscribed to the channel, so make sure to hit that button for me. We're trying to hit 100K by the end of the summer, and I appreciate you boys watching. Okay, so there are some tall-ass basketball players, and then there's this man named Tacko Fall standing at a towering 7'6" with an absurd 8'2" wingspan. Tacko wasn't just another big man. He looked like one of those hacked My players in Park. Y'all know what I mean. The first time most people saw him, they had to do a double take. Was this guy for real? Could someone be that massive and still even move like a regular human? From the moment Tacko stepped on a court in high school, clips of him dunking without jumping, blocking shots with barely a hop, and towering over entire teams exploded online. He was an instant viral sensation in the basketball community. Especially with a dope name like that, people weren't just watching him for his highlights. They were watching because they couldn't believe someone like him even existed. On Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter, Tacko became a legend. His insane size made him famous, but it also caught the attention of college scouts, NBA personnel, and even people outside the sports world. ESPN, Bleacher Reports, and other outlets couldn't get enough of him. Everywhere Tacko went, crowds showed up, not necessarily to see if he was great, but to see him, period. He was a walking attraction. Behind the viral fame was a player genuinely trying to become more than just a social media myth. Tacko Fall committed to play college ball at the University of Central Florida, and while most expected his height to be his main asset, he worked tirelessly with trainers to develop real fundamentals. During his college career, he averaged 10 points, 7.7 rebounds, and a massive 2.4 blocks per game across 4 years. His senior year was the most complete season, putting up 11, 7.6, and 2.6 blocks per game, while shooting an insanely efficient 75% from the field, which led the NCAA that season. No surprises there. He wasn't flashy, but he was reliable, especially around the rim. And on defense, he was a solid brick wall. At 7'6", players just didn't want to even attempt to drive at him. Even NBA-level college talent hesitated when he was in the paint. His presence alone could change a game at the college level. The defining moment of his college career came in the 2019 NCAA tournament, when UCF played against Duke and its young superstar in Zion Williamson, as well as his supporting stars. It was a battle of titans. Zion was an explosive explosive beast versus Tacko the towering giant. Tacko blocked Zion, dunked with power, and helped UCF push Duke to the absolute edge. In the final seconds, Zion drove into Tacko and scored through contact, and then RJ Barrett followed up a missed free throw to win the game. It was a heartbreaking loss for UCF, but the world had watched Tacko go toe-to-toe with the best and hold his own. That game boosted his draft stock, but still, it wasn't enough. In the 2019 NBA draft, despite his size and potential, Tacko ended up not hearing his name called. Teams were hesitant with him. Yes, he was giant, but the league had changed. Centers needed to be quick-footed, mobile, able to defend pick and rolls, and switch on the perimeter from time to time. And the shooting of today's league is something Tacko was also certainly lacking. He had literally none of those attributes. He struggled with lateral quickness, and he wasn't built for the NBA's fast-paced perimeter-heavy style. Still, the Boston Celtics ended up giving him a shot, signing him to an Exhibit 10 contract and later on a two-way deal. And when he finally stepped on an NBA floor, the crowd erupted. Every time Tacko checked in, whether it was just garbage time or not, the fans cheered like they were watching a goddamn concert. He became a fan favorite instantly. "We Want Tacko" chants would erupt in arenas, even when he wasn't in the rotation. During his short stints with the Celtics, and later with the Cavaliers, he played limited minutes, but he made the most of them. Across 2 NBA seasons, he appeared in 37 total games, averaging just 2.2 and 2.4 with a block in 6 minutes per game. On paper, those numbers are small, but if you stretch them out, he was producing decently well in a short time on the floor. Still, it wasn't enough to prove he could handle a consistent role on a contending team. That's when Tacko spent more time in the G League with teams like the Maine Red Claws and the Cleveland Charge. In the G League, Tacko's size was overwhelming to everyone else trying to crawl back into the NBA. He dominated in stretches, putting up games with 20 plus points, 12 plus rebounds, and even 5 plus blocks. He averaged 11, 9, and 2.6 per game in the G League over his first full season there. Against smaller, less experienced players, Tacko was a fucking beast. But the same issues continued to follow him. He was slow in transition, couldn't defend quick guards on switches at all, and was often a step behind guarding a more modern big in a pick and roll. He didn't stretch the floor at all and still struggled with foul trouble and conditioning. In the NBA, you can't just be tall, you have to be skilled and versatile, and that's where Tacko's game hit a wall hard. Despite all his work and efforts, NBA teams started passing on him. His minutes vanished, and the hype just started to fade. One minute he was a fan favorite in Boston, waving to screaming fans after a dunk, and the next he was off the radar completely. By 2022, Tacko was no longer on an NBA roster, and even though he had proven to be a good locker room guy and a hard worker, the league had moved on. Eventually, he signed with international teams, including a stint in China and overseas in Africa, where his size still gave him an advantage, but the bright lights of the NBA were no longer shining on him. And that's the sad, strange part of his story. For someone who towered over everybody, Tacko sort of just disappeared. He had all the attention in the world, but it wasn't enough. In today's game, athleticism is desperately needed as teams want people to hustle hard and switch everything. It's about movements, reaction time, and fluidity, and that's what Tacko had always lacked. He wasn't quick enough to chase shooters, switch on guards, or run with the pace of today's NBA offenses. Coaches couldn't trust him in meaningful minutes, not because he wasn't smart or skilled, but because the speed of the game passed him by. And that's heartbreaking, because he wasn't just a gimmick. He worked for it. He actually trained like he really wanted it, and even got better every single year, and carried himself with grace and professionalism, not just acting like he's a meme out there. Everyone wanted Tacko to succeed. Teammates, fans, and coaches all respected him, but respect alone can't get you minutes in a league built around spacing, speed, and shooting. And while being 7'6" made him famous, it also made him a liability on the floor. His body became both his biggest blessing and his biggest curse. In the end, Tacko Fall was one of the most fascinating players of his time, not because of his stats or accomplishments, but because of what he represented. A little throwback to big men bully ball, a walking highlight who made crowds gasp just by stepping on the floor. He was a social media god, a college star, and a symbol of how raw physical gifts can capture the world's attention. But when it came to turning that into a long NBA career, the odds were heavily stacked against him. As the game evolved, Tacko stayed the same, and that's why he slowly vanished from the NBA. Still, he'll always be remembered by fans, by Instagram meme pages, by kids who screamed his name when he checked in, and even though his time in the NBA was short, his impact wasn't. Tacko is proof that sometimes, even the most one-of-a-kind athletes don't fit in the modern game. But that doesn't mean their story isn't worth telling. Just imagine him back in Wilt's day. Just when he thought basketball couldn't produce anyone taller or more visually shocking than Tacko Fall, along came Bobroczky, a name that sounds like a basketball myth, but is very real. If Tacko looked like a giant, giant, Robert looked like something straight out of a different galaxy. A 7'7" teenage slender man, it seemed impossible that this dude was an athlete. But he was, and at one point, the world was just as obsessed with him as they were with Tacko. Before he ever stepped foot on an American floor, Robert Bobroczky was already famous. Born in Romania to a former professional basketball player and a volleyball-playing mother, Robert was always destined to be giant. But no one expected this kind of tall. By the time he was just 14 years old, he was already standing over 7'2" and still growing. Bro, give some height to the rest of us. His height was so shocking that photos of him standing next to teammates looked photoshopped. On the court, overseas, he dominated his age group, shocking absolutely no one as he was the minimum of 2 feet taller than anyone he played. He never had freak athleticism or next level skills. All he had to do was raise his arms and drop the ball into the basket, looking like when I destroyed my nephew on those little tight nets. Scouts from all over Europe took notice. He wasn't quick or strong, but how could you ignore someone this tall? As clips of him surfaced online, people around the world started to take notice. Was this the next great basketball phenomenon? Was he the next Yao Ming, or maybe even taller? The buzz around Robert grew quicker than he did. And then came his big move. At age 16, Robert moved to the United States to play high school basketball at Spire Institute in Ohio, a sports-focused academy focusing on developing elite athletes. This is where things really hit the spotlight, because Robert didn't just show up, he showed up alongside LaMelo Ball, one of the most talked about prospects in the country at the time. LaMelo, the flashy guard and the youngest brother of NBA star Lonzo Ball, brought cameras, crowds, and constant media attention wherever he went. And right next to him was the towering silent figure of Robert Bobroczky. The contrast between the two couldn't have been more different. LaMelo was full of flair, dancing on defenders and launching deep threes, and Robert, the 7'7" skyscraper, who moved slowly but had undeniable presence. Every game's an event. Social media blew up with clips of Robert dunking without jumping, struggling to keep up in transition, or simply just standing in the paint with his arms up while players panicked. He averaged some very modest stats of 2.4 points, 3.1 rebounds, and 1.1 blocks per game during his time at Spire. Not exactly eye-popping stats that you'd expect, but again, his impact wasn't about numbers, it was about genuine curiosity. Scouts, coaches, and fans weren't sure what to make of him. Could he grow into a real player? Was there potential under all that height, or was he a novelty act who couldn't survive the intensity of a high-level game? Sadly, we never really got to find out. After his time at Spire, Robert quietly faded from the basketball spotlight. He didn't commit to a big college program, and there was no NBA draft announcement. No G League deal, no viral moments. He battled serious medical concerns, including extreme fatigue, difficulty putting on muscle, and a body that simply wasn't built to handle the physical demands of elite-level basketball. His thin frame made it nearly impossible to defend faster, stronger players. His knees and back became major injury concerns. Coaches liked his effort, but the truth was brutal. Robert just didn't have the speed, strength, or coordination needed to play the modern game at a high level. The same fate as Tacko, but even worse. And just like that, the once famous 7'7" teenager became more of a where are they now question than a rising star. He didn't give up on life though, not even close. In fact, Robert took his unique frame and decided to pursue a completely different path in acting. With his insane height, long limbs, and soft-spoken, mysterious personality, he fit perfectly into roles that needed something otherworldly. Getting a huge role in Hollywood, appearing as the alien in the movie Alien Romulus. While most people use their athletic gifts to chase fame on the courts, Robert used his to create a new identity off of it. He embraced the fact that he wasn't going to be an NBA star, and instead turned himself into a visual icon in a whole new industry. Whether it's in horror, fantasy, or just bizarre roles where you need someone who looks unreal, Robert has found a lane, and man, he's crushing in it. His story is unique and kinda bittersweet. He didn't end up on NBA courts like his old high school buddy LaMelo, and he never became the towering NBA rim protector that people imagined when he first went viral. But he didn't fade into nothing either. He took the fame, the questions, the curiosity, and used it to build something new. In a way, Bobroczky is a reminder that not every basketball story ends with a championship ring or a highlight reel. Sometimes the journey takes you somewhere completely unexpected, and while he may not have made it to the league, his name and his unbelievable heights will always be remembered as one of the most bizarre things the basketball world has ever seen. Stromile Swift was a walking highlight reel, an above-the-rim anomaly. It's like you made this guy's vertical ability in a lab or some shit, or jacked up the sliders on 2K like he's a mutant. And in high school at Fair Park in Shreveport, Louisiana, he wasn't just dunking on kids, he was dominating games with a mix of power and freaky athleticism that made him literally unfair to play against. By his senior year, he was averaging over 21 points, 10 rebounds, and more than 3 blocks per game, earning Mr. Basketball honors in Louisiana and being named to the McDonald's All-American team. Basically, he was considered one of the best high school players in the country. College scouts loved his upside and potential, and it didn't take long for LSU to land him. But once he got there, Stromile didn't waste any time making a statement. He was a raw talent, sure, but man, he could jump and run, and swat shots into the third row like it was fucking volleyball. By his sophomore year, he developed into a full-on college star, averaging 16 points, 8 rebounds, and 3 blocks per game, while shooting over 60% from the field. He helped lead LSU to the Sweet 16 in the NCAA tournament, their best run in over a decade, and earned SEC Player of the Year and second-team All-American honors. NBA scouts were obsessed. The insane leaping ability, the shot-blocking instincts, the fast twitch agility at his size, and the potential to become a dominant two-way force in the league for years to come. So when the 2000 NBA draft came around, Stromile Swift was picked second overall by the Vancouver Grizzlies, a team desperately in need of something exciting to get fans buzzing about a fairly new franchise at that point. And Swift was exactly that. The hype was real. Everyone expected him to take over games with his freakish ability to become a star big man who could run the floor, protect the rim with the best of them, and catch lobs with ease. And in flashes, he was exactly that, posterizing defenders with some of the nastiest in-game dunks the league has ever seen, sprinting down the floor like a track star, and sending shots flying the other direction with perfect defensive timing and vertical bounce. But the problem was, it was always just flashes of athleticism. In his rookie year, he struggled to find consistency on the floor, averaging just 5 points and 4 rebounds per game in limited minutes, starting just a handful of games, and often looking overwhelmed by the structure of the NBA. He'd make a jaw-dropping play, then disappear for the next 10 minutes of the game, just running cardio essentially. In his second year, when the team moved from Vancouver to Memphis, he had a breakout of sorts, averaging nearly 12 points, over 6 rebounds, and almost 2 blocks per game, while showcasing a few monster performances, including a 31 points, 10 rebounds game that had fans thinking he was finally becoming the dominant big man they expected. He even participated in the 2001 Slam Dunk Contest, where he brought his signature ferocity to the rim. He ended up placing 4th, but he had gained a reputation as one of the most violent dunkers in the NBA. Like, imagine prime Westbrook in Kevin Garnett's body. Yeah, it was vicious. The problem wasn't whether Stromile could jump or whether Stromile could dunk, though. He was maybe the best in the league when it came to that. It was whether he could bring anything else to the table whatsoever. Over time, it became clear that he struggled with consistency, his basketball IQ was fucking terrible, and overall just had no effort to really improve anywhere. Coaches grew very frustrated with him because he'd have nights where he looked like an all-star and others where he barely made himself known. Despite his athletic tools, he lacked a developed all-around offensive game. He didn't have a go-to move in the post, wasn't much of a passer, and had a limited jump shot that defenses didn't respect at all, and really didn't have to. Defensively, while he could block shots like crazy, he sometimes got lost in rotations or bid on fakes way too easily. Aggressive as hell to try to get the block. He was too athletic to ever really be a terrible player. He averaged roughly double digits in scoring over a couple seasons, and was always a solid bench contributor in some form, but he never took that leap into stardom or even really as a consistent role player. And for someone drafted second overall with insane genetics and athleticism, that was a huge disappointment to say the least. To make matters more complicated, the Grizzlies found their franchise guy in Pau Gasol, a smart, skilled, versatile big man who played with finesse and control and kind of unathleticism, the opposite of Swift, and Swift was pushed to the background. He signed with the Houston Rockets in 2005, hoping to reset his career alongside stars like Yao Ming and Tracy McGrady. But again, it didn't click. He averaged just under 9 points and 4 rebounds per game, and never established himself as a reliable starter or rotation player. By then, the league was starting to move towards more skill-based bigs that could help space the floor at least a little bit, and Stromile's game, built almost entirely on quick bursts of athleticism, started to look a bit outdated and overall pretty weak. He bounced around to different teams, the Rockets, back to Memphis, then to the New Jersey Nets, and finally to the Suns, but his minutes and production kept dropping and dropping. And by 2009, he was out of the league entirely, at just 29 years old. He tried playing in China for a bit, but soon faded from professional basketball altogether. And the sad part is, he wasn't injured, and he didn't lose his bounce or anything like that. He just never expanded his game enough beyond being an insane athlete. In a league where athleticism alone isn't enough, Stromile Swift became the poster child, literally and figuratively, for wasted potential. He was arguably the most explosive dunker in the league for a few years, with posters so nasty they were almost actually disrespectful. But outside of that, he never became a real difference maker at all. His story became a what if about a guy with all the tools physically, but not enough development, mentally or skill-wise, to turn that potential into greatness. And maybe in another era, he could have thrived. Imagine Stromile Swift in the older NBA as a high-energy rim runner for the Lake Show or some shit, catching lobs from dynamic point guards, switching on to smaller players, and blocking shots in a system built for guys who could just stand under the rim. That would have been his shit. But now, the league expects its big men to do more. Post up, pass, stretch the floor, and make smart decisions. Swift never fully added those things to his duffel bag. Even now, basketball fans look back at clips of his dunks with a mix of awe and frustration. How could someone so physically gifted just fade away like that? How could a man who jumped higher than almost anyone in NBA history not even crack a 15-point-per-game season? Maybe he didn't love the grind, or maybe no coach ever truly unlocked him, but in the end, he became a memory more than a legacy. A freak athlete, a burst of lightning, a flash of what could have been, and one of the best dunkers the NBA ever saw. Terrence Ferguson was a man who looked like he was made in a lab for basketball. The kind of player like Mac and Swift who could jump so high that defenders didn't even bother contesting. They just ducked and got the fuck out of the way like I would too. Watching him play was like watching a mixtape come to life. He had that fast twitch explosion that made him pop off the floor in a split second, hanging in the air like Jordan, and throw down ferocious dunks that made crowds go berserk. At 6'6" with a 6'9" wingspan and a vertical leap pushing well over the 40-inch mark, Terrence Ferguson looked like a future prospect in the NBA. He was long, lean, bouncy, pause, my bad, and surprisingly had a smooth-looking jump shot to go with the bounce. As a high schooler, he was already a legend in the Dallas area, first at Prime Prep Academy and then Advanced Prep International, where he played alongside other elite prospects and always stood out because of his unreal bounce and skywalking dunks. He didn't have to dunk on people, he was soaring over them like they weren't even there, throwing down windmills, reverse lobs, 360s, you name it, and doing it all with this calm, confident swagger that made him look like a star before he ever set foot in an NBA arena. He averaged solid numbers in high school, but more than stats, it was the eye test. Because playing with other elite talent at your age, of course you gotta share the rock a bit. But every scout and coach who saw him live would leave talking about his freakish athletic ability. He was a 5-star recruit ranked in the top 15 nationally in his class, and earned offers from just about every major school, eventually committing to the University of Arizona. But in a bold move, Ferguson decided to skip college entirely, yeah, fuck school, I hate it too, my man, and he signed a pro contract with the Adelaide 36ers down under in Australia's NBL, wanting to go the Brandon Jennings or LaMelo Ball route by playing against grown men overseas instead of dealing with the midterms and the finals. The decision raised some eyebrows, but for a kid with this kind of talent, it wasn't hard to understand. In Australia, he showed some flashes of future greatness. He played solid defense, knocked down some 3 balls, and had a few highlight plays. But overall, his numbers didn't live up to the hype. He averages 4.6 points per game in limited minutes, and scouts were left wondering if the jump to pro ball immediately after high school had slowed down his development. Still at just 18 years old, with his length, vertical, and fluid mechanics, teams were willing to bet on his potential, and that's exactly what the Oklahoma City Thunder did, selecting him with the 21st overall pick in the 2017 draft. When he put on that Thunder cap, it looked like a perfect fit, honestly. OKC was known for athletic two-way wings like PG, Andre Roberson, and Victor Oladipo, who had passed through there. And Ferguson was supposed to be the next in line. He had a great build for a shooting guard or small forward, could guard multiple positions, and had the kind of bounce that made fans sit up every time you saw him running in transition. His rookie year was quiet for the most part. He played sparingly at first, spending some time in the G, but then, out of nowhere, he dropped 24 in a game against the Lakers, including a couple of absolutely filthy dunks that got everyone's attention. In that one night, it felt like Ferguson had arrived. He looked fearless, athletic, and the idea of him becoming a starter on a playoff team didn't seem too far-fetched. The next season, he got his shot. He started 74 games for a Thunder squad led by Russell Westbrook and Paul George, playing nearly 27 minutes a night. Defensively, he held his own. Quick feet, long arms, smart rotations, but on offense, he was invisible far too often. He averaged just 7 a game, barely got to the stripe, which is tough for someone who should be attacking the basket like he is. It only took open threes or the occasional fast break dunk. It was like he had all the tools but didn't know what to do with them. He couldn't create for himself literally at all, didn't show much of a handle, and didn't have the confidence to take over even in small stretches. Still, fans were patient. I mean, he was only 20 at this time, still learning, and the defense plus athleticism made him still playable regardless. But by his third season, everything started to unravel. His minutes were dropping, his shooting percentages were dropping, and he struggled with personal issues off the courts that affected his mental. And we all have seen what that can do to a player. I mean, just look at Ben Simmons or any other player like that. He lost his starting spot, became a non-factor on offense, and by the end of the season, he was playing under 15 minutes a game and averaging fewer than 4 points. The same kid who was throwing down windmills over grown men just 2 years earlier was now barely touching the rock, standing in the corner, hand up in the air, waiting for open threes he no longer even had the confidence to take, let alone make. The Thunder, once excited about his potential, had clearly moved on like a toxic girlfriend. In November 2020, Ferguson was traded to the 76ers in a multi-team deal, but the writing was already on the wall. He played in just 13 games for the Sixers, averaging a little over 3 minutes, scoring only 6 total points across the entire season. It was brutal. Then he was traded to the Knicks, way before the season even began, and just like that, Terrence Ferguson was out of the NBA, gone at just 22 years old after starting a whole season. No injury, no massive scandal, no dramatic exit. He just faded, just like his ancestor, Stromile Swift. The freak athlete with one of the best verticals in the league couldn't hold on to a roster spot. And the thing is, he still had all the tools. He still had the freak show bounce, the defense, the ability to make plays in transition, a decent looking jump shot that at times looked consistent, but he never could put the rest together. He never became a ball handler, he never figured out how to attack closeouts properly or finish through contact at the highest level when he couldn't just make an open dunk. His shooting, once promising, became unreliable. He looked very hesitant in himself, and in a league where wing players are expected to either shoot lights out or create with the ball, or ideally both, Ferguson never became either. He could defend, but he wasn't a specialist. He could dunk, but he wasn't an elite slasher, and everything in between was just missing. And in a league overflowing with versatile wings, that just wasn't enough. After failing out of the league, Ferguson tried to find his way back. He bounced around, he played in Greece, Poland, and even South Africa, and had a brief stint with the G League Ignite. But the hype he once had was completely gone. Teams weren't calling his phone like they used to, scouts weren't lining up to take another look, and fans who once swore he was the next big thing were left wondering, what the hell went wrong? It's one of those cases that hits harder because the talent was never the issue. The athleticism, off the charts. The frame, ideal. The highlights were insane. Basketball is more than just being a highlight machine. You have to grow, adapt, and develop on the mental side and the physical side. Ferguson never got to that point of developing his game to an NBA level. And now when you look back at his career, it feels like a case of complete untapped potential to the highest degree. A player who could have been a star 3-and-D wing, an elite role player with lockdown defense, and elite finishing at the basket. I mean, it's kind of surprising he never figured out a way to just stick. The NBA doesn't wait, it moves fast. And Terrence Ferguson, for all his raw gifts, just couldn't keep up. He'll always have those clips, the high-flying slams, the chase-down blocks, but when people look back on his NBA career, it won't be about what he did. It'll be about what he could have done. A freak athlete, a walking highlight, and another story of potential that never became reality. Still was goated on 2K though. Before Zion hit 360s all over Instagram, before Ja turned every defender into a potential poster, before viral hoop mixtapes were just part of the culture, there was 7th Woods. And for a moment, he was the fucking man. He wasn't just a high school basketball player, he was an event. A show, a walking highlight reel that made even the most skeptical fans and scouts freeze in disbelief. At just 14 years old, this skinny-ass, explosive 6'2" guard from Columbia, South Carolina, looked like someone had stuffed Russell Westbrook's DNA into a teenager's body and turned the dial up to max intensity. His Ball is Life mixtape exploded online, racking up millions of views, and it was clear why. He was catching lobs from the free throw line, windmilling in traffic, dunking on dudes twice his size, and accelerating end-to-end like he was De'Aaron Fox and John Wall had a love child. There was no one else like him. His vertical was rumored to be pushing 42 inches. Crazy. My girl said 3 was plenty. Anyways, he wasn't just dunking, he was levitating. And it wasn't just the hops. He had slick handles, speed, flair, and a certain smoothness that made everything look too easy, even when he was going top notch. When that first mixtape dropped, it was by far the craziest tape that the basketball world had ever seen at the time, and even stands today as one of the most viewed of all time. Coaches, scouts, NBA players, fans, everyone and their grandmother was asking the same thing. Who the hell is this guy? His name was unforgettable, his game even more so, and the expectations sky high. By the time he entered high school at Hammond, 7th was already being treated like a future NBA lottery pick. He delivered on the courts. Over his 4-year high school career, he poured in over 2,000 points, led Hammond to multiple state championships, and was a 2-time SCISA 3A Player of the Year. He averaged 19 points, 4.5 boards, 5 assists, and 3.5 steals a game his senior season. And the highlight reel never once stopped. Whether he was splitting defenders for an impossible layup, tossing lobs off the glass to himself, or throwing down reverse dunks in transition, Woods played like a fucking cheat code. He was ranked as a top 25 recruit in the class of 2016, a 4-star guard, and had his pick of blue blood offers from schools like Kansas, Florida, Georgetown, LSU, but in classic Tar Heel fashion, North Carolina came calling, and Woods committed to play for one of the most storied programs in college basketball history. It felt like the perfect fit. UNC had a long line of legendary guards, and Michael Jordan himself, Vince Carter, and 7th Woods looked like the next in line. Fans were already picturing him in baby blue, blowing past Duke defenders and Cameron Indoor, soaring in March Madness, and hearing his name called on draft night. But then, the storm of real-deal chess match-like basketball hit, and for the first time, 7th started to fade. As a freshman on the 17 UNC roster, he found himself buried behind experienced guards like Joel Berry and Nate Britt. He played just 8 minutes per game, averaging 2 points and 1 assist, and only appeared in 40 games, most of which were just garbage time minutes. The transition from viral prodigy to college backup was jarring. Even though UNC went on to win the national championship that year, 7th only played a small role. Still, there was optimism. He was young, learning, waiting for his chance to prove himself again. But then came the injuries, first the stress fracture in his foot that derailed his offseason development, then ongoing lower body injuries that drained some of his otherworldly bounce. In his sophomore season, he saw a slight increase in minutes, 11 per game, but only managed like 3 points, shooting a rough 35% from the field, and a terrible 13% from 3. The confidence that once literally defined him was gone. He looked like a shell of his former self. The game that once flowed from him so naturally now seemed like a struggle to get going. His handle was still tight, his defense was serviceable, but the dynamic burst, the speed, the explosion just completely gone. By the end of his junior season, he'd become an afterthought in Roy Williams' rotation. 3 years into college, and the high school legend was averaging just 2 points per game in a career-worst 4 minutes per game. Woods was no longer the electric playmaker he used to be either. To make it even worse, the UNC fanbase, originally buzzing about his arrival, had grown silent. Analysts stopped talking, the NBA not even watching or caring anymore. So he made a move that felt like one last shot at redemption. He transferred. He announced he was leaving UNC and heading back to his home state to play for South Carolina, hoping the reset would revive his career. It was a fresh start, closer to home, with a team that could give him a real chance to lead. In 2020, he finally suited up for the Gamecocks and started in 13 of 18 games. But again, the magic never came back. He averages 5 points, 2 assists, and shot 37% from the field. The consistency was never there. The elite vertical didn't dominate like it once did, and the scouts still silent. After the season, rather than declare or chase a pro contract, Woods transferred again, this time to Morgan State, a smaller D1 school in the MEAC. If nothing else, he'd get the ball in his hands more. He'd finally be the guy. And sure enough, he played a bigger role, averaging literally the same shit. He was 24 years old in his 7th year of college, and no NBA team was interested in an undersized, inconsistent point who'd never averaged more than 7 points in a season and had a long history of injuries. And just like that, the story ended. Not with a bang, and not even with a whisper. There was no draft night announcement, no summer league invite. The kid who wants to look like a lock to be the next big thing, the high school sensation who redefined what a 14-year-old could do on a basketball court, never made it to the league. And it wasn't for a lack of heart. Woods stuck it out through all his injuries, through roster changes, through transfers. He played for 3 different colleges over 7 years, tried every angle, chased the dream, but the early expectations were just too massive, and the development curve never matched the hype. And now, when people talk about 7th Woods, it's always in the past tense. He's not remembered for what he did in college, but for who he was in high school or even middle school. That ball-is-life legend, that 14-year-old freak, the 6'2" phenom who could jump from the free throw line and cock it back like he wanted to rip the rim off. That kid. Not the college backup. All the players we've talked about had genetic gifts most hoopers can only dream of. Draw-dropping bounce, elite speed, and bodies built for highlight reels. Some of them could jump higher than almost anyone in the league. Statistically, less than 1% of NBA players ever record a 40-inch vertical. Others with the kind of rare size that borders on myth and legends. Only a fraction of a percent of people in the world are over 7 feet tall. And yet, somehow, even with all that raw talent and genetic gifts, it just wasn't enough. Because the NBA doesn't hand out success based on potential. It demands skill, consistency, and an elite work ethic. And for all their freakish athleticism, none of them were able to carve out a lasting name on basketball's biggest stage. Thank you for watching. If you made it this far, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and as always, I'll see you boys in the next one. Peace out.